Yeah, it's funny. I think like I had a moment with the boys, like Miguel and Vasco before the race. I just said, like, we better not bloody let these guys beat us. We better not just open the door for them just to waltz back in and after gallivanting and doing different things like marathoning or T100 or long course stuff, like we can't just let them in.
After French Riviera, it was proper running. Like that was so fast. And even me watching from Australia, because I came home for a couple of weeks, I was like, wow, what's that run gonna cost us? Because credit to Drew Box and Vasco, that was unbelievable racing. It'd be interesting. I'm not sure, and Matt and I've spoken this, he wins Calaveri. I'm not sure he wins Wollongong. I'm not sure.
Next in our end-of-year roundup is an excellent doubleheader in the company of the man that pulled off one of the most flawless seasons and biggest championship finals performances in memory, world champion Matt Hauser, and the coach who helped him engineer it, Dan Atkins. From the deep, career-altering conversations they had while locked down together during COVID, to Dan's concerns for Matt's mental health heading into Wollongong, and why racing Carlo Vivari went from being a huge question mark to a defining moment in his grand final success. It's a brilliant deep dive into the duo's planning behind getting an Aussie male back on top of the world for the first time in 20 years. Hope you enjoy it. You're both at home, are you?
Yep, on the Gold Coast, both of us. We just separated only 2 hours ago, I guess, from swimming. So,
how does that look in December after a championship winning season?
Oh, it was 4K this afternoon in the pool. Session, I think Dan just wrote things on the board to keep us engaged, but the real thing was just to get through it, which we did, thankfully. So, it's been a bit of an elongated break, I must say. Like, it hasn't been the 2 weeks off and straight back into it. It's definitely been, I've been cruising a little bit in neutral, but it's been, it's been good and worthwhile to take the extra time. Being that the season probably starts a little bit later than it did this year compared to what it's going to be next year. So, it can afford a little bit more time to kind of smoothly transition back into training life.
I'm sure, Dan, that would have been one of the things that you would have said straight away, right? It's just kind of, right, take this opportunity because sure as hell going to have to be cranking back into it pretty soon, 2026. So.
Yeah, I can't say when I saw the calendar that I was upset with the latest start. I think it was good, and having a home world championship obviously came with all. I think Matt and I handled it really, really well. Matt particularly obviously handled it exceptionally well, and we had good little plans along the way with media and stuff like that to go, this is your last chance, and then Matt can do his thing. So it's been nice to let Matt actually enjoy this time of year. Like 2 weeks, normally, which triathletes have off, it's just that it's done before they even wake up. We've got a hard start line, 5th of Jan, so we've agreed on that. So I'm okay.
There's not many people that get that honour of winning a world champs at home. If you think, like, even Mario or Javi, how many they won between them, and they never got the chance, right? It was Gwen 10 years ago.
Was that the last one?
Yeah.
Wow, crazy. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, to be honest. No, it was certainly massive honor. And when you put it like that, it is such a rarity, right? Like having that opportunity to not only race at home, and luckily we are fortunate that we are at somewhat of a leading tri nation, so we are afforded a few opportunities to race every so often. But yeah, it was just an opportunity that we just couldn't pass up, and I knew that was something that like just really drove me the whole year through all the hard days in training, through all the mishaps or setbacks and whatnot. That kind of allure of the home world champs and the prestige of being able to win it, or having the opportunity to win it was too good not to pursue.
And Noosa was one that you just wanted to tick off at the end of the season there, was it, Matt? Like that, did that feel a bit surreal being back racing straight away? Yeah,
for sure. I think it was a little bit hard to kind of carry the motivation through to Noosa. Obviously, it's a iconic race. Everyone knows it. Obviously, having the likes of the Olympic champion Cassandra Bergeron turn up just speaks to the prestige it holds amongst Australia, but not only that, the world. So I think for me, it was kind of, it was a race I really wanted to tick off. And obviously being now the second person in the squad to win it, it proves a little bit of bragging rights over Braden Mercer, who won it last year at the bold age of 20. So it's nice to get it back over him. I'm sure he'll be challenging me for years to come. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of banter. It was a lot more fun filled, and a little bit less stressful than Wollongong. Or it was a great weekend. And yeah, I just found that week post Wollongong, I was just riding off that high and momentum of the race, and still felt really good to train, and obviously experience being, in some of the best shape of my life in those sessions. And then the week leading into Noosa, it kind of just then tailed off a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, now I've got to race again, let's step up again. And yeah, I just remember thinking to myself mid-race, I was like, I'm happy this is my last race of the year. I'm happy to call it here. So it was an honor, big honor to win and back up. But yeah, even just to have the opportunity to race so soon after the world champs, as titled the world champion, was pretty special and definitely a big honor.
And Dan, did you have to did you swerve that one, or could you not keep away either?
No, I definitely want to be there. It was great. I was in the VIP tent hanging around, getting pats on the backs and stuff. So I get to live the moment as well, which is really cool. For us, it's a bit of a homecoming. There's so many people, and, in Matt's and my journey that we've been a part of for, 20 plus years. So to reconnect with a lot of those people is, I think, really important for us to be there, to show that we're there and we can stop and say hello to people, and them feeling really connected to Matt's victory is really special for our community in Australia and even Queensland. So Noosa, yeah, you couldn't not be there really. And I had a ball. It was a great weekend.
Yeah, he certainly made use of the free bar tab of the VIP tent, mate. I think, remember on the Saturday afternoon pre-race, you were singing quite a few tinnies with Courtney Atkinson.
Yeah, we had to debrief, your world championship, mate. So we had to catch up on a few things. Yeah.
Plus the opportunity to see your man come across the line there, and just be sat on the side, like no consequence compared to, my God, I was feeling for you as I was trying to just see what might be a good time to come up and stick a camera in your face during the bike and run of Wollongong. And had to pick the opportunity carefully, let's just say.
I love the fact, and I mean, I'm not just saying it's because of me, but I love the fact we're now communicating with coaches, seeing Miguel's coach in El Jahiro, and just the excitement that we have on the sideline, capturing that is so good. And whilst he beat Matt on that occasion, I still love the interaction with him, and so you're doing a great job in that space. I honestly don't remember what I said to you, Doug, to be honest, but I hope it was okay.
The first one was great, and and the second one I just can't take much more of this guy's time, because I think there was like one lap left. I had to get to the finish, and you had way more things on your plate. But yeah,
we get to outlay that energy into our craft and the swim bike run, but coaches, they're just as invested and passionate about what we're doing at the time, but they don't have, a swim bike run to put all their energy into. So microphone's a good way to blurt it all out.
But also, if we're talking about like sharing the sport, getting it out there, that finish shot, you in the air facing the crowd, and but it's an iconic shot already.
Yeah, I think it was reflected. The moment was reflected really nicely in the photography. Obviously, we had Delhi Carr back there, photographing his last ever Triathlon World Championship events. So shout out to Delhi, but really special, especially seeing like the crowd, the way it was set up, like 10, 15 deep, all the age groupers, all the under 23s and juniors, and even elite women sticking around to watch the race. I think there was a shot of Ash Gentle in the crowd as well. She'd obviously just raced the T100 the day before, so everyone was out in force, and it was a really special moment to share that with the Australian people and to have that triathlon culture that we know and love, to be at the forefront of everyone's mind in such a great city of Wollongong. And I think the whole kind of 20 seconds down the blue carpet, or it was probably even less, but I tried to savor as much as possible. I didn't let myself kind of waver at any stage of the run. Like, obviously I had periods where I had a 50-second, 30-second, 35, 40-second gap. So there was probably some stages for me to kind of soak it up, but I just really wanted to stay, headstrong and fight to the line, because I knew that anything could happen. So for me, when I got that blue carpet, and I was really able to release that energy and all the pressure that had built up, and when I grabbed that Australian flag, it was a super cool moment to have that.
And I've got to ask, because we were talking about it with Mark after the race, the videographer, and we were wondering what the gun move is. We were like, is he shooting himself in the foot? What's going on?
The funny thing is that the first time I did that, I actually rolled my ankle on the finish line. So it actually did look like I shot myself in the foot. That was at Mooloolaba earlier this year. But it's basically just LeBron James, his celebration that he did one time with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it was just bit of cool, bit of swagger, bit of icing on the cake. And I thought it was fitting, and I've done it a couple of times now. It's kind of stuck. So, I'm not shooting myself in the foot. I'm cocking a gun and putting it away because I maybe got more to give or something in that aspect. So,
and did you feel, Dan, as well, like that? That achievement, that moment was got the audience back in Oz that it deserved as well.
Oh, the people around the race were just amazing in the lead up, and so many people drove into Wollongong from where we are on the Gold Coast, or even further, like Matt's family driving from Hervey Bay, which I don't know how many hours that took, but more than 20. So, just having so many people there and just wanting to be there and experience it and everyone that wasn't there was just like, oh my God, what an opportunity missed for us not to be there, because the vibe there was amazing. It was clearly my favorite World Championships that I've been to, but even with Rochelle Hill winning earlier in the week and having the T100 there and everything just made it such a special event. And I'd like to hope, and I'm really hoping the flow on from this is we have more major events in Australia, because Mooloolaba to this day, and Matt will probably agree, is my favorite ever World Cup. And just the location and starting the World Series in Australia, in Sydney over the years and stuff like that. I'd love to see that come back, because I think we're ready for it. And I'd like to think that Matt's had something to do with that.
And but was there a sense of the moment and the achievement going somewhat mainstream, Matt? Was it shows calling you up and getting you on?
Yes and no. It's funny. I posted a video that week of, I think most people have seen in the tri world, like me getting attacked by a magpie out on the bike. And I actually had a few people in that week of the World Championships coming up to me and saying, are you the magpie guy? Are you the guy that got attacked by a magpie? So that just goes to show
that went viral.
Yeah, that went proper viral. But I think it does still have a long way to go, especially in Australia. I think definitely the European, I guess, acknowledgement of endurance sports is a lot more prominent now. And I think in Australia, it's probably tending that way now with the big post-COVID rush of running and marathons, and people slowly then transitioning to triathlons and wanting more and new and exciting challenges to kind of explore what their body is capable of. And at the end of the day, us as elites, that's what we get the biggest kick out of, is just exploring where we can take our bodies and what lengths we can and where we can go with that. So I think it is slowly starting to become, in the realm of mainstream. It will never be like football. Like, that's just the reality. It's not as, I guess, easily accessible as a kicking a football on a pitch. Like, that's, you got to have your bike, you got to have your goggles, you got to have a body of water to swim in to start with. But I think it is getting the recognition now that it is a really challenging and fulfilling sport to do. And we are driven by participation as a participation sport. So the more people into the sport, the better. And I'm hoping that the performance in Wollongong did show that.
And from a viewer, a fan, an audience perspective, right? It's down to us now to cook up next year. You, Alex, Hayden, all back on the start line like that. That is what people want to see. That is going to be juicy.
Yeah, so we'll try and drum up as much drama as possible. That's as much drama as triathlon can take. I think obviously in the long course space, there's a few more personalities. So we'll see what we can do. But other than that, at the end of the day, we're all good mates and we all enjoy racing each other. But when it comes down to racing, we all want to beat each other. So that's the cool thing to portray. And no doubt the competition from now on in towards LA will get more fierce. And obviously Alex and Hayden, as you mentioned, they'll be coming back with maybe a bit of vengeance, bit of chip on the shoulder type of thing, wanting to prove that they're still the guys. And no doubt that they'll still be very competitive and up there and challenging all of us that race consistently throughout this year once again.
So if you go back to the conversations you two were having at the start of this year, and obviously aware somewhat that Alex was going to be doing the marathon situation, Hayden, obviously no one had a clue what would happen to him through that 3 months layoff, but at least that he was going to be on this T100 mission as well. So was there a sense that, this was and obviously with Wollongong as the crowning moment, this was a huge opportunity and it was about plotting exactly how you maximize that?
We certainly didn't put names to the process. We didn't chase people. We chased progression in Matt's ability. So we played with different things this year and we had a real clear, this is year one of a quad. So we wanted to make sure that the things we did this year helped set up 2026 and 2026 into 27 into 28. So we were really firm, and the great thing about Matt is we'll talk through plans and we might have 2 or 3 conversations, and we always meet together somewhere in a united front, and might be a bit ebbing and flowing with what we want to do. But the new things we put in plan this year, there were 2 key objectives there. And I honestly think the 2 key objectives really worked well for Matt, his physiology and the way that he moves. So we've shown that Matt's not hit his ceiling yet. And I know that we've got a lot more room to grow. Both of us as a duo, I guess, and also but Matt as an individual. And Matt's driving a lot more of that now. And I think that's fantastic for his growth as well, to own this space a bit more. And most certainly this year, he drove a lot of conversations, and I sort of went, yep, righto, let's get it done. And to his credit, he bought into my ideas as well. And yeah, it worked out really well.
Was that a conscious thing from you, Matt? Did you feel this was the year that either you wanted to be more collaborative, or that it just came that way, or had that already started ahead of Paris as well to an extent?
I think it kind of came from both of us, probably more so like Dan, even like I think just his openness to new ideas, and obviously we've got a lot of history with each other, and there's a lot of other guys also in the squad now that we value their opinions and their input as well. So just as a whole, being a collaborative unit moving forward. Obviously both of us had never experienced a proper altitude camp, a sustained altitude camp. So Andorra for us was both new ground. So there was a lot of physiologists and et cetera kind of that were brought on to kind of help us structure that. But I think ultimately, like having that perfect storm of the motivation, post Olympics, maybe a couple of guys are missing. There's a really good opportunity to nail a home world championship, and the allure of a home world championship title married up with testing and trying new things that would maybe give me that extra edge of 1 or 2% over the competition. So I think that motivation mixed in with the new ideas and new strategies kind of culminated into just overall just progressing as an athlete. I think I hit 3 or 4 different like power, like wattage PBs throughout the year. in and around those key blocks. I was running the best I'd ever had on the track. And that all kind of came from the early work we did earlier on in the year, but then also, those key targeted phases in and around altitude. So yeah, it was just a perfect storm, I'd say. And then even like sustained over like an 8 to 10 week period post, which I kind of thought, me being, this being my first altitude block, I kind of thought that could be a bit of a worry, like doing a big altitude block and then having, an extra 2 or 3 months to kick on and try and hold form towards Wollongong. But we ended up executing really well, down at sea level and making the most of those gains that we got up at altitude. And, I know guys like Kentero and, these guys are still so young, but they've been going up to mountains, 2,000, 2,500 meters since they were 18, 19. So I think for me to now just be starting to tap into those methods and training philosophies, I think is really important, but it's really important that I was ready for that as well. I was ready to isolate myself with a few other guys, just swimming, biking, and running and sleeping and eating for 4 or 5 weeks at a time, locking in. So, potentially 3 or 4 years ago, the Matt that was may not have had the dexterity to cope with that. So, it was the right timing for me.
Particularly ahead of Paris, I guess that was a big part of a lot of athletes' preparation at the time, and it just wasn't something that you felt was going to be effective for you.
Yeah, I think we played around with a few things before Tokyo around the heat stuff and in the heat chamber and tent and whatnot, and it just hadn't really worked as well as we wanted to. So I think we knew we needed to get a lot of the big rocks right first, and we thought, well, it's probably too late to experiment with things, in an Olympic year. So let's just try and get the big rocks done as well as we can. And then we can start afresh at, year one of a 4-year cycle into LA, with the altitude and other little bits and pieces with it integrated around strength and conditioning, and nutrition and whatnot. So it just felt like the right timing to start, at the beginning of a quad cycle.
And for you, Dan, how was that as well? Were you there the whole 4 or 5 weeks? And yeah,
yep.
Is there a sense of like, two fellas from the Gold Coast out of their natural environment and starting to get a little bit twitchy for some sunshine?
Yeah, I think by the last couple of days we were definitely. I was really probably the biggest area I reflect on is that a sort of something neurally. You just go, okay, we're getting close to leaving, so you trick yourself into saying, well, this is enough. But I honestly think, from everyone Matt alluded to, that we were talking to other people, bringing other people on our journey to get the information that are a bit more experienced in this than us. And they gave us a window that they thought collectively it was the right amount of time. And I was looking to squeeze that a little bit more, but I sort of came back on that and went, okay, I'll back you experts, silly of me. And thankfully it was the right time. And I think as we were descending down the mountain, going off to a French Grand Prix, we were all like, yeah, I'm glad we're leaving here. So it's certainly given us good information for 2026 and how we can start shaping that, most definitely.
So was that just ahead of the Hamburg French Riviera kind of double header?
Yeah, you obviously map out what the key races are for the year, and having the mixed team relay as well. It's that double-edged race that you want to perform at, and to us, Hamburg is always an unofficial peak of the year for it. That Worlds is another 3 months later. So the way I periodize the training is to peak up to Hamburg, most definitely, as I think most people do. But it was the right time post El Giro to go then back into Spain for a couple of days and then head up the mountain for that 3.5, nearly 4 week block. It just fit nicely because there was no races in that period that were going to affect the overall standing for the season. So it sort of stood out to me and Matt, and we went, yeah, that's our period to do it, to not race, to not go up and down, not muck around with it, like really go all in on it. And of course, we've had those discussions for next year about, okay, is that what we want to do again? So, yeah, it just worked out really well.
And conversely, how does it work for a race like Abu Dhabi, which was so unusually early and a full 6 weeks before that, which will come in 2026? So the way that run played out, I guess, Matt, was a kind of a good head wobble of here's Hayden, he's snaking around in front of me. This isn't going to happen again.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially when it got moved, I think it got moved another week forward, I think, or at some stage it had been moved again. So I was like, oh shit, now, it's coming closer and closer. And meanwhile, I've just gotten off a flight from being in Bali for a week with my mates in mid-December. So I think it was a bit of a mad rush to try and chase some fitness in that period. And then also we're testing some stuff on the time trial bike and wanting to do a 70.3 there after as well. So it was a bit of a mad rush, to be honest. So I was really pleased with how the race turned out for me in Abu Dhabi, being able to challenge Hayden as well as I did towards the back end and having a complete race from start to finish. So, but yeah, that definitely was a sign to me where, it's the formula is almost there. I haven't been that close to Hayden before, especially at the start of a season. So there was definitely a good base to work off from there. And obviously we had a lot of time leading into the next race in Yokohama to work through that. So unfortunately, obviously Hayden wasn't able to make that race because he
wrestled it.
So yeah, but I think that was just a really pleasant surprise to be able to make it up to the front end and to really contend at the very start of the season. But then also, yeah, it was probably okay, that was frustrating to be there and not to have anything in the dying stages. So let's work on topping that extra % or two up.
And yeah, of course, there was the 70.3 excursion. So that again was a result of that calendar shift, I suppose, was it? And wanting to put something in there, and because I suppose reflecting on a season that was quite an outlier. That was quite a punt in a season that had a hell of a lot riding on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was, Dan and my collaborative effort to try something new. And that was to kind of expand my aerobic capacity and therefore do a few things around, strength endurance running, a lot more, longer build, kind of fartlek sessions in the run. And a lot of that just married up nicely with the 70.3, 21.1K kind of half marathon work that you needed to do. And for me, I think whilst I didn't get to finish the race in Geelong due to some bike mishaps, I think that was a really good way to set a solid foundation from onwards from that Abu Dhabi race. And I think it did a lot for my consistency, especially over the Olympic distance racing for this year. And that's probably something that we'll look to implement again next year, is that really, longer strength endurance run, similar to if I was maybe doing a 70.3, but not quite that specific, I guess.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Given how you were feeling going into Wollongong, for example, Matt, and best shape of your life, that you both know that there's 3 years that you can get so much more out.
Oh, look, I think that's part of the thing I realized early with Matt was that we've been very fortunate to have very, very good people, very knowledgeable experts around us who've been in our sport for a very long time. And I love the what if conversations, and I've been really curious around Matt. I mean, there's no denying he's has an amazing amount of talent, and we've done all sorts of tests to prove that. But at the end of the day, Matt's got to want to live, eat, and breathe the sport. And that, to be honest, has taken the longest to develop, is that real fire to really go all in. And I've been really proud of ourselves, that the pair of us, that we've been patient enough to take that time. And sure, there's times I go home and I go, is this actually going to happen where I think it can happen? But I keep reminding myself of just how fun the bloke is to be around and how enjoyable he makes the journey. And I think we get lost in the seriousness of, in inverted commas, of what we do. But we're doing triathlon. We get to go all around the world. We get to go to these amazing places. And I think last year I created our 3-word motto, and that's fun, health, and happiness. And we really went into Paris making sure those 3 things were at the forefront of our mind. And I'm absolutely adamant we've carried that through this year. And I've always put Matt's character first before his talent or his ability. And that is someone that needs to disconnect from the sport. And I fully appreciate that and understand that has to happen. And with it comes that lots of friends and lots of different circles that he needs to be a part of for him. So I think that's been our biggest driver to the longevity to where we are today. It doesn't feel like 10 years to me. It honestly doesn't. It just feels like last year he was staying at my house and reading books to my 2-year-old.
The winky wonky donkey.
The winky wonky donkey, yep.
Was that something that you recognised in yourself as well, Matt? Like that balance that was perhaps needed, or to take a little bit of the levity and turn that into a more serious approach?
Yeah, no, I think it probably happens through experiences, right? Like the experience of Tokyo and what that was, and what I guess an anticlimactic disappointment that was for us as an Australian cohort. So I think all those things along the road kind of shape you and mold you and mold, the path that you want to take in the sport. And yeah, probably my seriousness towards the sport, my attitude towards the sport wasn't quite there in the early stages. And I did rely a lot on given talent, and probably didn't commit as much to the sport as I probably should have. But ultimately, like, people can tell you all sorts of things and tell you to mature quickly or to rush things, or you need to do this, you need to do that. But ultimately, like, you need to find that balance yourself, and that comes with maturity and experience. And I think for me now, I'm only now getting to a stage where I can recognize those things, and I've learned, along the journey that now is the time to go all in. Otherwise I'll look back in 6-7 years time when my career is potentially over, and I'll think, what if, which is a very scary thought, too scary to not make the sacrifices today to make that not happen. So I think ultimately you have to make your own journey through that, and that kind of maturing can't be taught. It needs to be learned. It needs to be, found yourself.
Yeah. Was there, like, would you say there's been a couple of moments, Dan, that you've recognized along the way then, where almost like a different Matt has walked into the room or the poolside, and you just kind of gone, oh, okay, this is an interesting switch up?
Yeah. Look, I think those little acute moments, it just been him and I conversing about what's needing to be done. And, we had 2 weeks in lockdown together post Abu Dhabi Worlds in 2022 or 21, whatever that was. And we had some amazing, we were literally locked down together for 2 weeks, and I was completely fine with it. I'm pretty sure Matt was too, but we had some amazing conversations in those 2 weeks that really hammed out things post Tokyo. And we ate and we drank together, and we talked different things. He got an insight into how I operate work wise and the politics of the sport probably, and I listen to him being a young developing male, and but that was a real catalyst, I think, for us moving towards Paris. And we've reminded ourselves a few times of those conversations, and they're still drivers to where we're headed now. But that was probably the big catalyst, I think, that after Worlds in Cozumel as well, that was a good conversation, a good period of time where we sort of sat down and had to sort of ham it out. But it's been lovely to see the progression, that's for sure.
Do you look back on that little 2 weeks as well, Matt, as a pretty formative experience? Nothing like being locked down under the yoke of your coach and not being able to escape?
Nah, there's nothing like that. It was just two mates bunked up together, to be honest. I I think obviously we had a lot to reflect on. The sport was changing. I guess the world was changing as well during that time. And there was a lot of restructuring and goings on in Oz Triathlon as well. So I think, for us, it kind of felt like, I don't know, it's like a nice kind of moment where, not to sound, cocky or whatever, but it was kind of like it was the center of the world. Like we were kind of hashing out, the next 4, 8, 12 years right then and there. So it was kind of like, it felt like a really big turning point in not only our relationship, but my career. There was athletes at the time kind of moving on from coaches and doing different things because they didn't, whatever they thought they wanted to get out of their own journey. But I think for me, I knew that the job wasn't finished between Dan and I, but also like I had more to give, and I recognized that I had more to give, to get the best out of my career, but our coach athlete relationship. And for Dan just to have, the patience with me across the whole years and not, jam anything down my throat, but just to be patient and sit with me and let me go through that journey, by myself and find what I want to get out of the sport, was really instrumental in that happening, I think.
I suppose if you, even at the end of this year and even as you start next year and even as LA gets closer, it might have dimmed a bit, but that sting that you were talking about post Tokyo is still there, right? There's still that rawness that if you need to call upon it or you need that kind of reminder that whatever comes next, however good it gets as well, you can have that like moment just to give you that extra hit again.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's definitely such thing as scarring, right? Mental and physical. So you never want to go back to those places where you kind of feel a little bit helpless and lost, in your career, something that you've spent your last 10 to 15 years doing. So, definitely don't want to get back to that stage. And I think we've put all the right things and the right people and support, around us to make sure that doesn't happen into the future. And, it's an exciting few years to come, I think.
So off Andorra, the altitude, Dan, was there an amassing of data coming out of that you were then just kind of pouring through? Did you go full Norwegian out of there?
It took a little bit to get the right data coming out of it. We certainly, again, the good people that were in our corner that were helping me sort of analyze what we were doing and when to sort of, I guess, pull the trigger. Realistically, we planned it so Matt could pull the trigger at Hamburg, and noting that Hamburg is a 2-day event, it's not a 1-day event, and knowing that we wanted to have a good performance as a team in the mixed team relay as well. And to be fair, we never spoke about winning at all. The process of either race, it was just, again, being better than Matt was in 2024. So I mean, when you're in an altitude, you don't really see the signs. You're not running as hard. You're not riding. Well, we certainly aren't. We're not riding as hard, but I just know certain metrics are coming up in the right areas. And for Matt to be well rested and have fantastic physiology based around numbers going into the race, I generally know how it's going to go. And that's pretty damn good. So we certainly saw the right signs and had the right people give us that information. And when he hit the ground running off the bike in the right place this year, as opposed to 2024, dare I say, off the back a bit out of T2, he made amends there and just took off really well. And the rest is in the history books, I guess.
Are there any headline numbers you can share, like that made, for example, that run in French Riviera was unbelievable, and that as well as Hamburg and that explosive mixed relay were the direct results, like you said, of what was going on up the hill?
Interestingly, we look a lot more at HRV and sleep patterns and stuff like that. I look at closely with our team around that. The physiology, the numbers in training, there was certainly a couple of sessions that we did that we both went, oh, okay, it was probably more probably the numbers Matt produced post Carla Laveri that I sort of stood back with Matt and went, okay, these are really good numbers. In fact, better numbers than ever that you've produced back to back. And the feeling, the neural feeling wasn't 100%. So if you're producing that when you're not feeling 100%, imagine what's going to happen when you've tapered a bit. So again, the numbers come out, but it's still the conversation that Matt and I had, the little poolside conversations that we go, that was good. Yeah, that was good. And that's sort of all we need to say. And we both look at each other and go, yeah, we don't say it all the time. So I think we both sort of gave a nod of approval around a couple of key factors. But I love seeing Matt's HRV nice and steady and a really good consistency there. And both those periods produced those sort of numbers, which was great.
And you must have finished French Riviera. And I mean, that was as hard as you had to dig all season.
Yeah, for sure. I was smashed. And I think, normally coming off a sprint distance, you're probably ready to train hard again, 3 or 4 days post. Whereas I think that race definitely took a little bit more out of me. I probably got pushed to my limits from Vasco, like really solid performance from him. Like he just somehow seems to just smash his body to the limits all the time and just stick to you like glue. So, for us to both put on a show, I think on that run and have, some historic times on a very accurate course was really cool to see. As I said, mental scarring. So I think I know how hard I had to push to get those numbers out. So I know I'm going to have to work bloody hard to get there again, if not harder. So, but it's cool to see, the training that was implemented and then getting those kind of times and results out on the course and being able to, execute that on the day. It's not just a 1 out time trial. There's a lot of factors that go into the race. Hence, I broke my bike in transit going over to French Riviera and only found out the day before. So I had to Specialized sort me out with a borrowed bike, essentially. It wasn't quite fit up to my size, but we best matched it. So there's all these different factors going on. So, for me to kind of produce that run and that finish was certainly really pleasing, but I certainly had to dig a lot deeper than I ever had to get the job done.
And so satisfying when Alex and Hayden were back and perhaps stealing a little bit of the spotlight in the run up to the race.
Yeah, it's funny. I think like I had a moment with the boys, like Miguel and Vasco before the race. I just said, like, we better not bloody let these guys beat us. We better not just open the door for them just to waltz back in and after gallivanting and doing different things like marathoning or T100 or long course stuff, like we can't just let them in with open arms. So I think that was also a nice kind of midway motivator for me to stay on task towards a bigger goal of Wollongong, was to have that kind of, that smaller goal thrown in there with those kind of guys coming back into the fold and an extra bit of a challenge in that race. So it was just a really fun weekend, obviously with the T100. The first weekend, it's kind of been back-to-back in the history of the sport. So, it's a great weekend. I was just happy to execute. But those guys, as I said, will be coming back, obviously focusing more on short course racing going to LA. So, I can only imagine. So it'll be interesting for many battles to come, I think.
So Carlo Vivari, that was your last race before Wollongong, and you had to take it easy. There was some cramping, correct, in the legs, and I suppose that's the sort of thing at that stage of a season that you got to be very careful about, but also must have been setting off a few alarm bells for you, Dan, and hoping that, that's a perfect example, is it, of where you've got to have absolute trust in what your athlete is telling you, because you know what he's got coming up, and the last thing you want is anything to be kind of massaged or masked as not as bad as it might be. Or
it was a huge question mark, that race, from the get-go, and we discussed the reasons why. Matt didn't race fantastically in Way High 2024, and we had a debate of which race to do for the season, and we parked way high for 2024 and went, well, let's look at Caraveri. It'll sort of marry up with the style of training that we were looking at for Wollongong. So it was an interesting weekend. It was great to go over and do it, but certainly the debriefing afterwards was really calm. It was Matt owned everything. He after French Riviera, it was proper running. Like, that was so fast. And even me watching from Australia, because I came home for a couple of weeks, I was like, wow, what's that run gonna cost us? Because credit to Drew Box and Vasco, that was unbelievable racing. And to see Matt go that deep, I could tell by watching the race at home how deep he was going. And I'm like, wow, this is... And having the wrong bike, there was a few things going on where I went, I'm not sure this block post that is going to help Calaveri, but it helped Wollongong. So
13:36 for the 5K, just to put that out there for the French Riviera race. Yep.
Crazy quick. So came at a little bit of a cost, but probably, it'd be interesting. I'm not sure, and Matt and I have spoken this, he wins Calaveri. I'm not sure he wins Wollongong. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's so I think it was a good time to get a bit of a reboot over there and come home absolutely firing.
Just on Calaveri, like Dan's bang on there. Like, I think if I don't have that wake up call, obviously being on maximum points, somewhat like being up within the top few all year, maybe that motivation going into that 4 or 5 week block isn't quite there, or that I attack that differently, or I come in with a false sense of security or anything like that. So I think for me, I needed a key race like Calaveri that was challenging in all aspects, to be able to, really challenge myself and keep myself accountable and on the ball. It proved well to be consistent throughout the rest of the year as well. We had a similar kind of reflection last year as well to Hamburg before Paris, and Hamburg was like 2 weeks before, and obviously did really well. I won Hamburg, but then obviously it didn't go all to plan in Paris. I still had a decent race, but we reflected and said, like, did I really need Hamburg in that preparation? Like, was that win or getting that result or racing that race, was that necessary? Because potentially I could have prevented myself from having that Hamburg race at the Olympics, in doing that. So these are just reflections where, you have to reflect on the negatives, but also you have to reflect on the positives and lay it out in the longer form of the year and go, was that totally beneficial for the end goal, which was the Olympics? And I guess part of that Calaveri experience was I even quizzed Dan and Georgia, my partner, like after the race. I was like, did you guys believe like I could win that? And, obviously you're expecting your support people, your people in your corner to say yes straight away. But I was expecting them to say no, and because I probably didn't believe 100% deep down that I could. And then they were honest. They said, no, we didn't believe that obviously there's always some belief, but we didn't 100% believe that this race was the one for you. So I guess then to take those learnings and that kind of somewhat negative experience into the next bit of block, I think it really did fuel us and fuel the motivation, to keep going for one more time for Wollongong. And then you mentioned, what did we kind of emulate for the Wollongong race, and we had a specific course that we'd done a few times on the bike, and it was similar elevation, similar, I guess, like hard kind of 30, 40-second spurts up the hill to I think, was it North Street Hill, to emulate that, and then also Flagstaff Hill on the headland on the bike. And it was about an hour, about 40 or so K. And, I think 2 or 3 weekends back to back, I hit my all-time hour record power without necessarily feeling like I had 100% to give. And that number then reflected in the Wollongong bike course, where I hit basically the exact same number, in that bike in Wollongong. So it did go to show that we did really emulate the course and the conditions and the demands of the race really effectively in that block leading into the race. And I think that's something we definitely nailed. And then obviously I was able to run off the bike comfortably and well in Wollongong, because I had done those 2 or 3 race scenario training specific sessions in the lead up.
What was the normalized then that you were hitting in training and in the race? Who were the poor people trying to keep up at that those sessions?
Yeah, well, keeping in mind I'm 80 kilos or 78 kilos or somewhere around there, so I'm a bit heavier, but I'm happy to share my data. I'm an open book. I'm on Strava, everything. It was about 360 for the hour, and I hit that on basically consecutive weekends. And then the race in Wollongong was I think just under that, but still around that mark. So it goes to show that exceeding or meeting the racing demands prior to the races is really beneficial and critical.
How were you in the immediate run up to the race? Like, for both of you, did you start to notice like a few mental strains and stresses, or indeed, Dan, did you think to kind of initiate any stresses, I suppose, mental stresses into situations to help it then give you something, a reference point, as it were, for if on the morning of that race, who kind of really knew exactly how Matt would be feeling?
I was certainly concerned. I know how the Australian triathlon / media community is when they've got a homegrown hero doing really well. We have, this tall poppy syndrome in Australia that's very, very real, and we get on the bandwagon. And I mean, to Matt's credit, we, I was asking him daily, and he may not be that acutely aware, but I'm like, mate, are you okay? And we had a drive up to Brisbane one night, which is about an hour away, and we were doing a talk at a school, and we actually got a chance to really sort of have a good chat, because he was busy outside of training, and there was a lot going on, and Matt, being Matt, wants to give a lot of himself to as many people as possible for the right reasons. And I think that's something that, as someone leading a sport that isn't necessarily huge on the radar in Australia, he feels doesn't feel a responsibility, but he gives it his responsibility to give back. And I'm the one going, I hope it doesn't get overwhelming. But he did, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, did say, it is different, this feeling, getting ready for this home world championship. But I think for me, hearing him say that little bit of vulnerability allowed me to go, okay, I need to make sure we've got some things in place. And, I was stoked that World Triathlon, led by you, Doug, did a lot of stuff in Colour Varied, which we knew that we weren't going to get too hounded. I made sure our performance director was very aware of, and that anything that Oztri media-wise needed to go had to come through me first, and he would navigate. And our performance director's an ex-coach, so I knew he'd understand. But there's a couple of little things we did, a couple of mornings out, and I went along as sort of a coach / security, I guess, and just checking that it was all okay. And I mean, at the end of the day, Matt handled it so damn well, and whilst, yes, there was a little bit of pressure there that I'm sure he felt, he managed it so well. So, to the point where the morning of the race, he met up with his girlfriend and went for a nice little run. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that he still connects with his people, even the morning of a race. He feels that importance, and clearly helps. It's ended up a pretty good day.
Did you notice any little unusual chinks in the armor, Matt, like for yourself as well as that? It's a hugely serious thing and a huge amount of pressure, but at the same time, these things sometimes filter through in amusing, in funny ways, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that whole like 3 or 4 week build up, the mind was definitely always on the race. I think I did find it hard to disconnect from that and kind of take a breath sometimes. And I think that was probably evident for me in the last kind of week or two. I found myself like doing some, say, race pace efforts on the bike, and I just reflected that my heart rate was just probably a few beats higher than I needed to be going the pace. I was just like, that's from anxiety. That's from doing these efforts and imagining myself in the race and in race situations where, you know, I'm pushing 350 or 360 watts in this training session, but I know that in a week's time I'm going to be doing that with thousands of people watching, with the pressure of and the weight of potentially a country on my shoulders, the allure of being world champion or the fear of failing and not being able to produce on the day. So I think those kind of race scenarios and that imagination did run wild a little bit when I was in those kind of race specific zones in training, which I found it quite funny. Like I was just like, you know, of course I'm just overthinking every little thing. Like it's just not me, but that's just the weight of the moment and the pressure that comes with you know, a home world championship. So I think as it got closer to the race, that probably dissipated a little bit more, thankfully, and I was able to just you know, really enjoy taper and freshening up, and you know, all the while going for walks on the beach with G and Maple, my dog, and enjoying the little moments as well. But yeah, certainly every little moment was kind of tenfold, and always kind of thinking about the race. So it was hard to manage it for sure.
I can see it's getting dark there, but we won't have time for the questions from social media, unfortunately. But one that was like, how did you actually? Are you a good sleeper the night before races? Did you manage to like switch off and get a good night's kip in there beforehand?
Bit of tossing and turning at the start for sure. It definitely helps, I think, being an afternoon evening race. Like it was a 5 o'clock race, so it was not like I was waking up and I was having to get straight into my race routine. You know, shovel food down my mouth and whatnot. So it did help being an afternoon race. I was able to, you know, have that nice morning with G and whatnot, my friends, and kind of build into the day. But I do find when you know, it is a morning race, I do struggle to get to sleep, which is, I guess, is natural. But yeah, try and stay off the caffeine the day before and you do your best to come up.
You know, we've been through the race, but I just, the look on your face at the athlete lineup, and it's as if the beaming smile on your face was probably not what most people were expecting to see, but it was quite interesting going from that, and then as he got closer to the start line, like the focus, and then the blinkers go on, and I suppose was that the smile, slight levity, something that mentally it was like, okay, execute this is, and it was like positive affirmation for you, something that you were like, all right, you know, just take this in.
Yeah, for sure. I think in that like 5 to 10 minutes before the race is probably when you're the most nervous. You guys hold us there for way too long. Just get us in. Make us start.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was kind of like reverse psychology of me smiling through the pressure and the weight of the moment. I just found it quite funny. I was just like, why can't I just not bloody smile through this? Like, why not? Wouldn't it just be the funniest thing if I was just laughing and giggling while, you know, the rest of the boys are shitting themselves? So I think, and then it's like, you can't control anything in those 5-10 minutes. Everything's out of your control. You have to wait for the start. There's nothing you can do about it. So I was just like, I'll just smile. And as soon as I hit that pontoon ready to run into the water, that's when, you know, the minute before the race, I'll lock in and do my thing from then on. So, yeah, it's just a funny moment where I was like, how funny would it be if I just started laughing and smiling and soaking up the crowd as well? Like, there was so many people there. So I found a moment to do that.
Yeah. Well, leave that as a cliffhanger. People, I can only recommend you watch that race back on Triathlon Live, but that start, that's what it was all funneling into, right? That explosive start of the swim. Suddenly you've gapped everybody already. Millions of eyes on social media. That was a freaking moment, and in some ways, like, race defining.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just to build up in a coiled spring. And I just went from the gun, and I obviously knew that it was somewhat tactical because I know obviously Miguel and Vasco, they have the best tickets in the you know, in the concert. You know, they've got the best tickets in the house. You know, like they can just effectively jump on my feet and have a free run to the first boys. So I knew that I kind of had to kind of nullify that and put them under a bit of pressure as well. So yeah, I guess the rest is history, as you said.
Great. Thanks ever so much for taking the time. Have a brilliant couple of weeks into and around Christmas.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dub. Appreciate it.
Come on, the Aussies.